Hello everybody and welcome back to another video where firstly today I have Ken here.
Hi everybody.
We also have Lakitia, hello. And basically today we're going to be discussing the topic around time compression. So this is one of the main changes and biggest things that's come out so far about this Amazon, the Lord of the Rings on Prime, a Rings of Power show, in fact, that there is time compression. And I think the fundamental thing, for at least for Tolkien fans, that time compression does, it removes the theme of the longevity of elven life and how this affects the Numenorians who sense that they want this life, and this creates all the problems that occur with the Kingsmen versus the faithful, the moral decay in Numenor, which does inevitably lead to Pharazôn using this, fueling this for his attack on Valinor. But with having time compression, we don't see this progression within Numenor, which in turn removes the factuality that they'll have to reconstruct another way to facilitate this change. And that's one of my main worries and problems with time compression. But of course, I'm probably sure one of you are going to say that this was a necessity.
It is.
Well, first of all, I just want to say very well said. I agree with most of what you said.
Yeah.
I do think I do see the value of time compression, because either you're limited to, if Amazon didn't do time compression, they would either be limited to a single time period or lose a big chunk of the mortal characters. So as we've now seen, Amazon has really big appetites and really big ambitions, and they want to jam all the main events of the Second Age in this show. So naturally, it had to be either time compression or just you lose like half of your mortal characters, which they wouldn't want to do. So I do understand it. But like you said, I really think you lose a lot of gravitas, just the scope of the events, if you cut out centuries of Sauron accumulating power, like in Middle Earth, and then, like you mentioned, Sauron just winning over Pharazôn. So I do think there's a lot to be lost here. And I do think that Sauron being taken to Numenor shortly after the War of Elves and Sauron is a huge change, in my opinion. And I would rather if Amazon just stuck with either one time period, be that the Forging of the Rings or the downfall of Numenor.
Agree, yeah. I think they would have. I think Carl said that this time compression is the second best option. The first best option would have been to have two separate shows, each
Yes.
dedicated to an epoch, a time period.
Yeah.
The second best is inevitably time compression. And the third best, I think, would be to do an anthology with big time jumps, because anthologies are artistically inherently inferior to cycles because they don't have unity. They're like a picaresque novel as compared to, like a Proust or a Tolkien. So yeah, it's you want to have that unity of character, unity of everything.
But then,
That being said, I think your arguments are very true. It does lose some gravitas. I would like it if, in spite of the time compression, it does still feel like a reasonable amount of time will have passed within the lifetime of the characters.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
like not 6 years like in Game of Thrones, like 12, 15, like something like when you watch uh, The Last Emperor, and you really like see decades upon decades of years in the life of the character, and you kind of feel the heft of time. That's something that I really like in shows and movies, and it would be nice to have it here, even within compressed time frame.
I would like that, but I do doubt that they'll do that, mainly
I
because of
agree.
the amount of really young actors and characters they have here.
I agree.
So if you have
The
somebody
kids,
like
yeah.
yeah, exactly. You have somebody
Tyrell.
like Tyro, and even people like, I mean, you can age Maxim Bulger and Emma Harveth much
A little
more than you
bit.
can, but then
You
yeah,
won't, yeah. The example that I always use is that you won't take Nazanin Bonyadi, you won't take Bronwyn, and then in
mhm,
season 4 she'll suddenly be an old hag. That's just not going to happen.
Wow.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I'm being harsh on purpose. I'm saying it's not going to happen.
Yeah,
But
it's not gonna happen. What I think they'll do. No, Fellowship, please do continue. Sorry, I've cut in twice.
no, mine's a bit of a different point. So go ahead. Finish off this one first.
I just wanted to say that I think they'll avoid specifying any time frame in
Sure.
particular. So I think
Yeah.
what we'll get is just see progression of time, but we won't know how much time has passed. They do have ways of showing that a certain amount of time has passed, like people progressing through their, I don't know, political careers, etc. People
Agree.
changing hairdos and stuff. I mean, you can show that some time has passed, but without limiting yourself insofar as to just determine the date or anything.
Yeah, they really don't have to do like cue cards. It's this year now. It's this. They won't. I mean, there's no value in doing that. Yeah.
But when I went, and again, I'm sure you'll probably remember more that when we spoke about when we had I think it was probably this time. I think we're going on to the week this time last year when we first found out about Isildur in the show, and then the main thing I was thinking then if is going to have the mid-second age in it, then they have to have time compression. But just after seeing them actually do it, I was thinking, could there have actually been a way that even I'm not saying every how the showrunner said it, where they didn't want it to be like a documentary that fans are demanding. I don't think we fans were demanding a documentary per se, but more a realistic version where maybe at least one time jump, maybe season 3, season 4, which could have been facilitated. For example, you don't but the thing is it's not the be all and end all. For example, a example I gave before was with the Viking show that has multiple time jumps, and you got literally a whole different set of cast from the different one that was in season 1, and you could really kind of have done the same thing here, where if it was just the Numenorians and this is off the premise as well, and the dwarves, but this is hopefully moving
and the Middle-earth natives,
and
quite a lot of characters.
But for example the
hobbits.
If for example if they weren't hobbits in there, and then of course then if they were going to have this time jump, if they were knowing they were going to make this time jump before they started putting characters in, then I'm sure they probably wouldn't have put as many Middle-earth natives or as that many Dunlendings, etc., because it probably would have been much more forging and elven focused the first few seasons, then maybe really only losing probably 5 to 6 Numenorians. Couldn't something like that could have worked instead?
I don't think so, because first thing, it's clear that they wanted the whole panoply of all the races, which I get. And that's one thing. The other thing is, even if it's just 5 or 6 characters, that's still an entire, very substantial subplot that gets completely overhauled. It's really weird. Do you ever see a movie constructed like that, or even really a show?
But yeah, this is a show more than a movie, though.
Shows but you want it to hold together as though it was a single movie.
Yeah, but then if you do get 30
that's the
hours,
ideal.
But with a movie, you get 1 to 2 hours of cinema. But then here you're getting 30 hours with this character, with these characters. And the fact that it gets changed could be a big part of the show, and could be maybe something Amazon coined, with the sense of that a big budget show has been able to do that. And maybe that gives a long lasting effect, because then you do start to evoke the theme of the Numenorian generations have passed. We've seen the aesthetic difference, the cultural difference, the difference in the political nature, and you get physically how different it is, and that could have been a really good theme that they could have incorporated by doing that. So it could have maybe been a possibility, but
for themes to work, I think the narrative has to work first. The thing that absolutely must work is the narrative. The narrative has to feel earned and work, and only then can themes really be threaded through. So to sacrifice the filling aspect of the narrative in favor of theme, I don't think is a very worthwhile compromise. And so I get the idea. It's the sort of idea that sounds very well on paper. Trying to actually write and direct a show like that, very difficult. I wouldn't have done it. Yeah.
I just have two thoughts before we wrap up. I just wanted to say that there are some shows that have been showing a longer progression of time throughout the seasons. For instance, Outlander is one that comes to mind, that you see the characters go through like very different stages of their lives. You meet the characters when they're like in their 20s, and I believe the current season has them in their 50s or maybe even 60s. So there are shows, they're still cast by the same people, but there are shows who do that. And I just want to go back on something that I've said earlier, which is that I would prefer either time period. But I must remember that when we first thought that the forging will be done by episode 2, and then there will be a time jump. After we found out that was not the case and that we would get to see Celebrimbor for longer than that, I was super, super, super happy.
Absolutely, yeah, sure, me too. Because it's like 2 episodes. That's like it's nothing. Like
Then
it's nothing.
you
at
want
the
it to
same
play
time,
out.
we did do a
Yeah.
lot of polls, and doing time compression was the lowest one, and this was like we had like a few thousand votes,
Again, because
the
yeah,
fact having a 2 episode prologue was always the number one thing on the vote. So maybe
yeah,
it's not
but it's
generalized.
because it's the sort of thing that looks very nice on paper.
Yes.
Then when you actually start to actualize it, it doesn't
Yeah.
really work. And also, it's if you're thinking about it from a book perspective, if you
Yeah.
think about it in the book where it's like years, and it makes very nice. Like this season will be this, and this season will be. Drama doesn't work that way, especially cinematically. It's just
Yeah.
I agree.
it can't. It's the sort of thing that works if you're in a book mindset, not if you're in a cinematic mindset.
Okay, and please leave your opinions on this in the comments below as well, and continue this debate around time compression. Thank you, Hen.
It's always fun. No need to thank me.
And thank you, Lakitia.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Goodbye.